Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another of the Real Couples series interview. Today, I am here with Christina from Germany. Hi, Christina. I'm so excited to have you here and welcome.
Thank you so much for your time, Susanna. I'm happy to be your guest today.
Yeah, so I'm very happy we are actually talking. And I mentioned that Christina is from Germany, but I'm not going to say from where is her partner. So I let her to introduce herself and share with us a bit more about her and also her relationship.
Yeah. So I'd say just go ahead. As you just introduced myself, I'm Christina. I'm originally from Germany. I am traveling right now together with my husband in a camper van. This is where you see the Baltic Sea over there. We're in Sweden right now. And my husband is actually from Argentina. He is, yeah, working remotely as well as I do. So this is why we both have the opportunity to travel full time in a camper van. And yeah, actually, I think that's it. There's so much more, but that would just be too long, I think.
Yeah, and we will dive into it, of course. And I love your background. And for those who are watching and you don't know, Sweden is one of my countries I really love. So it's nice to see it at least like this on camera. And I hope, Christina, you will have a great time in Sweden. And the first question I usually ask everybody, because we are all curious, is how did you meet your husband, who is from Argentina? You're from Germany. It's two different continents. It's a couple of thousands kilometers in between. So how did you meet?
So we met in the middle, more or less. That was, now I have to think. It's so long ago already. 7 years ago. So we met 7 years ago in summer when I went on vacation. I went on vacation first to New York alone, so it was a solo trip. And after New York, I traveled spontaneously. It wasn't originally planned, but I traveled to Miami as well. And my husband at that time was working for an ad company, so an advertising company in Miami. He started his job there for a month before I went as well. And long story short, I went solo to Miami. I hated it. I didn't like it at all. I was super bored. I didn't know what to do. I underestimated the heat. It was like super hot. We had 42 degrees the time I was there. So I opened my Tinder application and that was basically how we met. So we are still up to date. We are still not sure who contacted whom first. We don't have the conversation anymore. But what basically happened is that we managed on my last night in Miami, we managed to see each other. We managed to meet up. I picked him up in my rental car and we went for a little bar tour. We went to first of all to have some nice dinner together, also to get to know each other very well. And after that we head out to a bar. I made him drunk because I had to drive. So yeah, this is basically where it all started. It's actually it started, to be honest, if I may say it here, like it started as a one night stand. So we both weren't very serious about it. Um, and the next morning, I had to fly back to Germany, which was quite sad because I woke up with a very weird feeling. So I was like, okay, I just felt like that there has to be more than what we just experienced the night before. And luckily, even though I flew back to Germany, I kept on having my life. He kept on having his life in Miami, which he was very excited about. He loved the city. He loved the environment he was living in. So for him, it was a big adventure in Miami. And I was like, okay, he's not even going to think about me anymore. So I am most probably out of the picture. Um, but for some reason, we stayed in contact. We FaceTimed almost daily. Sorry, I'm still a bit sick. And yeah, this is basically how we became much closer, also on another level. Um, and this is how it started. So, yeah, thanks to Tinder.
Yeah, I love it. And actually, it's so interesting that you say you thought it was kind of over, even though you thought maybe there should be more into it, but you were on the other side of the world and somehow you kept talking. And I think this is so important, especially then when we start long distance relationship, the talking every day is so important. So maybe let me ask you. So that was quite some time back. Like you start talking, he was in Miami, you were in Germany. Now you are in a camper van in Sweden, and you are married for the past 5 years, if I'm not wrong. So how did you move from Germany and Miami to a camper van traveling in Europe and Sweden right now?
So, what happened is that basically the moment Nacho and I, so my husband's name is Ignacio, his nickname is Nacho. So Nacho and I, we got serious quite fast with our relationship. What happened is that we basically, when we really started dating, that was 6 years ago. So it was like 1 year of long distance friendship. Um, and then when I flew to Argentina, which was also a solo trip of mine, he actually decided to join me. And this is when we officially started dating. So that was in 2016. And then from there on, so the day we officially started dating to the day we actually got married, which was in March 2017. So there's just like less than 1 year between starting
Mm.
to date and getting married. We made plans on how our future might look like. I was willing to move to the US. I was willing to give up my great job I had at that time in Munich, in order for us to be together, because that's obviously for everyone who's in a long distance relationship, that's your goal at some point, to be together and not having all this paperwork and stuff um, keeping you from moving together. In our case, it was a little bit more difficult because, as mentioned, Nacho was living in Miami at that time. I'm a German citizen, so I just have the German passport. And what we did basically is, and after like really getting to know each other, after I applied for several jobs in the US, after everything we did didn't work out for quite a while, he actually proposed to me without really proposing in November 2016 when we met each other again in New York. And it was a very weird situation, if I may say so, because we were sitting in the underground line of New York and we were just talking about our future. And he was like, "Yeah, why don't we just get married?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, why not?" And he was like, "Okay, let's get married." I was like, "Okay." And this is how it started. So that was my proposal.
Well, I actually need to say something about this because I'm so happy you are saying it because also our proposal, and it's funny, we started also being together with my husband the same year, 2016. And also we didn't have any romantic proposal. So what happened in our case was that we were talking and it was already our son was born. And then it was like, okay, let's get married. And it's like, okay. And then Chris, my husband, he was like, "But I asked you to get married 6 months ago and you refused." I was like, "What? Do you think I would miss out that you asked me to get married?" And he said, "Yeah, I asked you and you didn't say anything." So I was like, "Maybe you didn't say it clearly." So it's funny that there are these stories. Like I'm happy it's not only me, that it's not only a romantic proposal, and it's beautiful. One of the best friends, she just got the most romantic proposal ever, and it's beautiful. But it's good to know for all the women who are listening that even if you don't get the romantic proposal, it's okay, because we can be still happy even without the beautiful proposal on the boat with the sunset behind and lights saying "I love you." So every couple has something. And Christina, because you said you were in 1 year in long distance friendship, then you start dating seriously, you got married very fast. So, what was the biggest challenge for you as a couple?
So the biggest challenge while dating on distance was definitely that we wanted to close the distance. We wanted to be together permanently. And what basically happened is that our heads were revolving around that the whole time. Like how to close the distance, what would be the next steps. And we were constantly, even when FaceTiming, like that was the almost the only topic we were talking about.
Mhm.
So that was the biggest challenge while dating on long distance. And sorry, and then while being together, obviously, because my husband is like none of our native language is English, and English is the language we're communicating in. So this brings a lot of challenges, especially in the beginning, because there are a lot of misunderstandings, and then you have the cultural aspect as well, which just throws an extra portion of yeah. Let me say it's never getting boring. So it's interesting to be in a multicultural relationship and not to speak your mother tongue, but it also brings a lot of challenges in order to communication skills. Like we actually our communication skills nowadays, they're quite good. Um, Also because we know each other quite well nowadays, but especially in the beginning, we struggled with that a lot. So there were a lot of misunderstandings, miscommunication. We would get mad with each other very easily um, because of that, because we didn't find a way of communication at that point. And that was definitely the biggest challenge, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, completely. I agree, and I also know the situation. Like for me, also English is not the mother tongue. My husband, his mother tongues are Bemba and English. So it's challenging, and it's because when we talk of language differences in the relationship, we often imagine the couples who cannot communicate at all. But I think it's important to say that even if both in the couple speak fluent English as I do and you do, it's still not our mother tongue, and you can come across lots of things which can drive the other person crazy because of misunderstanding. Um, so it's really important to pay attention to that and not to draw assumptions and immediately say, oh, this is what he's saying. So we just talked with Andreina, who is from Venezuela, and her partner is from Germany, and we were talking about it, that the rules of the intercultural relation should be to talk, talk, and talk, because you can come across so many misunderstandings, and they look tiny, tiny, but they can create big arguments. And having mentioned that with Andreina, who is also from South America, Venezuela,
Mhm.
and his husband from Germany. So you are from Germany and your partner is from South America. We talked with her about lots of culture differences comparing like Germany and South America. So I wanted to actually ask you if you did encounter any culture differences between German culture and the Argentinian culture.
Yes, many. So where do I start? I think the biggest difference is and I guess Andrea is her name, right? She might have confirmed that as well. There is a big difference because Germans, and I know it's a cliche, but I think it's so true, and I also know that this cliche applies to other European countries, European citizens, but we like to say that we are like very much on point. We are very direct, like we're very straightforward when it also comes to the way of we communicate, you know. While Argentinians, and they are a little bit different regarding to that. So they have plenty of words to describe the same thing, but they wouldn't name it. So it's actually like also when Nacho and I, when we have a disagreement, his way of communicating is just so different to mine, because he would just always find a way to say nicely, whether I am more like, okay, take this and deal with it, because this is what I'm thinking at that very moment. So that's the first one. And then the other one is that Argentinians, they are very, very relaxed. So they're very, as you would say, tranquilo. So which is
Mm.
basically almost the same as relaxed, with everything they're doing. So if they would like to hang out with friends, and let's say they schedule time and they say, let's meet up at 8 p.m., the first ones that would show up, that would be like around 9 p.m. And this is what I see in different aspects of Nacho's personality, even. Like, no matter what he's doing it with a lot of patience. He's doing it with a lot of love. For example, if he's cooking, like, it takes me, if I'm hungry and I want to eat, it takes me 45 minutes and then everything will be prepared. While else, when Nacho, for example, when he's cooking, it takes him 2.5 hours because he's doing it with a lot of time and he's doing it with a lot of passion. And it's very interesting to see that. So, but I would definitely say that this is like, regarding to that, we're completely opposite. For me, everything like direct, fast, and he's like chilled, mañana, mañana.
Yeah, I can relate to this. And as you said, maybe for most of the Europeans, or let's say Central Europe, as the Czech Republic, definitely we are used to be direct and everything. If it's 8 p.m., then it's 8 p.m. Also, same here in Zambia. If you meet at 8 p.m., it's maybe 9 or 10. But I think there are always like advantages and disadvantages. Sometimes it's so irritating, right? That you agree on something, but as you said, like your partner, your husband does like everything with the love and like the kind of
Yeah,
relaxed attitude, so it's kind of nice and we can get inspired from there. So
definitely.
even though sometimes it's very irritating.
I mean, what I've learned is definitely how to slow down and live a little bit, and how to be in the moment and how to enjoy without thinking of the next things I have to do. This is actually what he taught me. So over the time we met in the middle, we still clash a lot when it comes to that topic, because there's still a lot of things I really don't understand. But then I also learned to accept it in a way and be like, okay, that's, first of all, that's part of his personality. I love him for that. And it's also part of his culture, as well as it's like being strict, being like on time, and all those typical German things are part of me. And this is who I am.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting because I like to think that I did have an impact on him the past 7 years, as well as he did on me. And
Mm.
it's just beautiful to also that way to blend two personalities, but also two different cultures together. I love
Mm.
it. I really
Yeah.
enjoy it.
And I love that you said that you came to accept it, because this is also one of the very important things when we are in an intercultural relationship, that to realize that the things which usually in the beginning we are excited about, that those things which have drawn us to the person, later on they maybe start to be irritating because it's so different. But it's like good to remember, actually, that's why we like the person in the first place, and that's part of him, it's a part of his personality. And I don't think we have the right to change the person. And as you said, I think very rightly, is that when we are in a relationship and both of the partners care about each other, we usually meet somewhere like halfway. um, and I think it can apply to anything. We were just laughing with my partner about, like, I have this bad habit. We have the jars in the kitchen, like for sugar, and I hate closing it properly. So every time he takes it, like just the lid remains in his hand, and then the glass spills, like with sugar.
Really?
And because I just hate screwing it, like I just put it on the top because, and then he pointed it out, and he said it's so annoying, but then he keeps putting up with it, because then I put up with other things which are annoying to me.
Yeah.
So I actually realized, yeah, that's I love this because we need to learn how to live even with the things which first are
Yeah,
annoying and we came to accept it.
yeah, that's very good. I do the same, by the way. Not with the cup, but here, this is my headphone case, and I usually almost never put my headphones back in the case. So they would just fly around like this, headphones outside of the case somewhere in my bag. And every time my husband noticed, he's like, "Oh, okay, so this is how we carry our headphones nowadays." And he's like, he's making fun of it. It's actually very, very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So, and let me, because you have been married for 5 years and you have gone through the long distance, you have had challenges in communication, so you have experienced lots of things. So, if there is any other woman who is watching and they are dating Argentinian or somebody from some South Americas, because it sounds kind of similar, what would be your advice for them? Like, what should they pay attention to, or what they should consider when dating somebody from South America?
So that's actually a very good question because, like, before I got to know Nacho, before I deep dived into his culture as well, before I got to know Argentina and all this, um, we, even though we were in a relationship, I always thought like, okay, because you do have a lot of cliches in your mind. I don't know if it's especially for women, but you're like, okay, he's Latin American, he's very like chamuchande, so he's very, yeah, charming. And how do I know that he's very like that he's really serious about me, that he's really serious about us, that he's really serious about the future we are planning to build? And in my case, it took a long time, actually 2.5 years, for him to to prove that he's very serious about what he's saying. So the thing is with the stereotypes you have in mind when dating a Latin American, that they are very charming, which is true, most of them are, and they know how to treat women very well. And you might just like read the signs wrongly and be like, okay, he might be into me, even though if that is not the case. Um, so my advice would be to figure out like whether he's serious or not is to give it time. And for example, Nacho in the past, he always proved to me like his words, they weren't just words. He took action. So everything he was saying, he was consequent about it, and he showed me actions. And this is why, even though if it took quite a long time, and even though like he did it all over and over again, also to gain my trust completely, um, but that's when I realized, hey, he is serious about our relationship. He's serious about our future. When we talked about, for example, 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago, about like, hey, let's just have a van and travel through. The original plan was to travel through Latin America, which didn't work out because of COVID. Now it's Europe. I was like, okay, let's just see if he's really serious about it. But he was, and those are things over the time I've learned that. Um, I think that's part of any relationship, obviously, but I put down my stereotypes completely when it comes to Latin American men, because Nacho showed me that he's serious by taking actions and also being there, supporting me in whatever decision I was making and whatever
Hmm.
situation I was. When we moved to Miami, for example, I had a huge breakdown in the beginning. I had to deal with a lot of new things. There was this culture shock. I didn't feel comfortable, as mentioned before. I didn't like Miami, so there were a lot of things coming together, and I had this breakdown. And he was there, and he supported me. And then this is something you learn over time. Um, it's okay to be like a little bit suspicious in the beginning, but if your partner shows you that he's really serious about it, that he's really serious about the future, you should just go for it and trust 100%. And he gained my trust so many times that I don't even think about those stereotype of Latin American anymore when thinking of my husband, for example.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And there are two things I wanted to emphasize. It's actually the how big role the stereotypes play, because as you said, like this about Latin America, that they are all very handsome, sexy, and have lots of girlfriends. This is very similar in Africa, maybe in like even worse way, right? That all this, like we hear like African men cheat, like nobody else cheated, and yeah, it really influenced the trust, and it's always a generalization, right? All the stereotypes are always generalization, and we cannot say that every person from this country is like this. And the second thing, actually, what I wanted to emphasize is like, how do you actually know that the man is serious? And you said it very nicely, is that he has to show the action, to support his words with the action, that it's not just talking, I love you, let's move together, but then nothing is happening. So then maybe then we should start seeing the red flags if the man does not support what he says with actually what he is doing. So thank you really for pointing that out. I think it's really important for women to realize, especially it seems like I spoke also with other women who have partners from South America. It seems some things are quite similar to Africa, and there is lots of the way you said that they know how to treat women. It's the same in Africa, so it's pretty easy to find somebody who is not serious at all. And but then it's nice to hear how beautiful you are, how he loves you, how sexy you are, because it's not so common maybe in Europe. Then it's so easy to fall somebody for somebody who is not serious. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And Christina, to wrap up the interview, because in the beginning you mentioned that you are in a camper van in Sweden, but you did not mention more about what you are doing. And I know you do a podcast. That's how we actually met. So if you can tell us a bit more about what you do, and if you want to invite our viewers somewhere, then go for it.
So yeah, not only do we travel in a camper van, we do have a podcast as well, as you just mentioned. Thank you for pointing this out, Susanna. We actually, when the whole COVID situation started, so 2 years ago, we started a podcast together, my husband and I, called International Love Story. And in this podcast, we started telling our story, how we got to know each other. So the first episodes of our story is still online. So if you would like to listen to it and would like to hear our full story, because obviously there's so much more than you can just tell in 30 minutes or in 1 hour. Go and listen to International Love Story. It's available on Spotify, Anchor, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to podcasts. And from there on, it just developed like to get bigger and bigger. We did a deep dive into like figuring out that there are so much more couples going through similar situations like we did. And we thought for so long that we are the only ones experiencing this. But thanks to social media, we were able to connect with other couples. And this is why nowadays the podcast is completely different. So the podcast is about other couples and individuals, also experts talking, telling their story, how they got to know each other, about their struggles. And yeah, all this, as mentioned, while living full time in a camper van. So that's actually my baby now. So I'm responsible for it and I love it. Yeah, and that's what I'm doing as a hobby. It's my passion while working as a freelancer. So I'm actually self-employed. So the podcast really is just something I do on site, also to support others and yeah, to share as many, like as you do, like to share as many stories as possible. So for everyone to feel involved and included and basically, yeah, feel like you don't have to struggle alone, you know? So there's so much
Yeah.
more out there, and just connect. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the reasons also why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it was in the words in one of my clients after she participated in one of my online course. She said, it felt so wonderful to realize that you are not the only one in the space who has a partner from different culture and is dealing with completely different types of problems than when you have a partner from the same country. So as you said, like we are so many of us in all the wonderful different combinations, which I love. So, and we often face similar challenges. So, thank you, Christina, for sharing a bit about your story. I will share also in the comments the name of your podcast so our viewers can watch the full story. And thank you so much for coming. It was pleasure talking to you, and greetings to Sweden.
Thank you so much for your time, Susanna. It was lovely talking to you.